Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet. We are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a returning special guest. We have Bekka Dowland. How's it going today?
Hi, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited to have you back on. It's been at least a year, I want to say. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say it's been at least a year.
I think you're right because I think the last time we chatted was when Malibu came out. So that was about a year ago.
Yes.
Actually, a year ago today, like to the date is when Malibu was released. So
Wow. That's crazy.
I know.
It's we've got our 8 year anniversary of the podcast coming up here at the end of the month. So it's just kind of like I'm
That's
trying to
awesome.
book I've been trying to figure out something to do for it because it's like not a lot of music podcasts stick around for 8 years. And so it's
No,
like, yeah.
yeah,
So
that's so exciting.
yeah. And so it's like, what do I do? And then one of my buddies was like, hey, what are you doing like the 27th? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you have in mind? He's like, let's do a podcast. I'm like, hey, that's the anniversary, so let's do that. So yeah.
Perfect.
But excited to have you back. How's everything been going for you?
Everything has been great. I'm so excited about the EP release. I'm so excited about all the songs. I've gotten really, really good feedback so far, which is always awesome and just it's just cool, when you put music out and people actually like it because
Mhm.
you never know. You never know.
Right, right. So you brought up the EP, and I guess we'll just kind of jump right into it. Failures and fairy tales. What's kind of the story behind this EP?
This has been something that I've thought about for at least 2 years now, not
Mhm.
necessarily the title, but I just knew I wanted to do a bigger project outside of just releasing singles, and I was like, "Okay." I was, like, not quite ready for an album yet, but, like, definitely, like, an EP, and then during COVID when, we couldn't really do anything, I wrote a lot and then talked to my team, and then we finally just made it happen at the top of this year. We narrowed down the songs we were gonna put on it, and then the whole theme was kind of failed love and not failed love, and almost every song has the word fairy tale in it, so it
Mhm.
seemed pretty fitting. So that's kind of how it all came about.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's cool. That's that you kind of had the broad idea of doing a bigger project because, like, I mean, we talk about it all the time on the podcast about how the industry's so singles driven right now, which
Yeah,
isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there's still people out there like myself that prefer a bigger project to listen to. So,
I totally agree. Like I love listening to like a whole album that kind of gives you a start, a middle, and an end. Like you said though, love the singles and that's just how it is now, but bigger
mhm.
projects are nice too.
But then again, it's like the industry was very singles driven back in the 50s and 60s as well. So, like, I mean, we're
Yeah,
just kind of on a loop, anyways. So, because
true, very
I,
true.
I remember my mom telling me back in the day when she was a young kid, she'd always have a stack of 45s that would have a single, like the latest single from whoever it was. And it's like, the industry hadn't changed all that much. It's just kind of circulating.
That's a good
So,
way to put it.
right. Um, so Failures and Fairy Tales, that's the new EP. You said you had the basic idea back in the pandemic and had just been writing.
Mhm.
Um, w- and then it wasn't until late earlier this year that you've like really started to narrow in on the project, or
Yeah, yeah. So when I started thinking about the project, I actually lived in Nashville, which
Mhm,
that's like a whole other story for another day. But I was only there for like about a year, and
mhm,
then my world kind of got flipped upside down. Like I moved back home to Massachusetts. So I didn't really have time to like hone in on like a bigger project until the top of this year,
mhm.
which I'm fine with because I feel like everything happens for a reason, and I feel like the way that it turned out is exactly how it was supposed to turn out. So I'm happy with everything.
Gotcha. So last time we talked, were you in Nashville? I feel like you were still in Massachusetts at that point.
I was, yeah. So I was in Nashville in 2022. So
Okay.
end of 2022, moved back home. All of 2023, I was up in Mass, and then I'm
Okay.
still here.
Gotcha. I was sitting here, I was like, feel like we would have had a completely different conversation knowing you were in Nashville, but yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Um, so you're still kicking it up in Massachusetts?
I am. I am born and raised here.
Nice. How's um how's the scene kind of recovering since the pandemic is now like fully not a thing?
I would say it's pretty much fully not a thing here. Everything's pretty much open back to normal, I guess you could
Hmm.
say. But I feel like most places are. I don't really know
Yeah.
because I haven't really, I say I haven't been down south for a while or anything, but I feel like everybody's mostly back to normal.
But I guess when I asked that question, like you guys did you guys lose any like major venues, or are you starting to see like new venues pop up, or?
Didn't really lose any. Everything, it's almost kind of like time paused and then it
Mm,
just hit play again when everything was over. Like everything's like kind of the same.
mm. Gotcha, gotcha. Because I know a lot of places that lost
Yeah.
venues, and it's just kind of like it's always, even though the pandemic ended over 2 years ago,
I know.
that there's still places that are trying to kind of figure it out, and like they need to get more venues in because venues closed down during the pandemic, and it's a whole thing. So,
Yeah, it was crazy.
but so going jumping back into the EP, did you end up having to write any songs specifically for this project, or was it all songs that you had previously written that just kind of fit into this idea that you were playing with?
So I had most of them written already. Two of them were gifted to me. The first track, Gravity, and then the third track, Fairy Tale, were gifted to me by my team. But I'll
Hmm.
never take songs unless I can relate to them myself and kind of pinpoint them in a time in my life, which is why I ended up taking them. And I felt like it really fit the theme of the project. But most of them were already said and done and written. The last one that I wrote was in December of 2023. And then
Hmm.
in March is kind of when I finally hit up my manager and I was like, all right, I'm ready. Like I've got stuff. Let's narrow down what we're doing. And here we are.
Nice. I love that musicians are starting to not shy away from like outside music, like especially on the independent level. They're
Yeah.
welcoming music that they didn't necessarily write because for whatever reason, but they still relate to it.
Hmm.
I've always thought that if they want to see the music scene like really start to hit its full cycle, like rewarding these songwriters that can't necessarily sing or don't want to sing, whatever it is. And I think it's really cool that musicians are kind of shedding that, oh, it's frowned upon not to write, sing and write your own music.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up because yeah, probably like a few years ago, if you asked me would I ever take somebody else's song, I'd be like, oh, like absolutely not. Like if my name's not on it, like I don't want it. But
Hmm.
kind of like you said, yeah, I have like a different perspective where like, I respect the heck out of my co-writer
Yeah.
Danny. Like he's so talented. Like he can write for any genre. And he's like, hey, like, these are things I wrote for like a project that we never did. Like, do you like them? Do you want them? Like I imagine
Hmm.
this to be like the country route that you're trying to go for. And I listened to them and I was like, no, these are actually perfect for what I'm doing. So it just
Hmm.
made sense.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so, with that in mind, is that kind of the road you see yourself on, like working, doing more co-writes and working with other writers for projects, or?
I actually would really like to. I've always been kind of just like a solo person where I just wrote on my own and then I would send it to my team and then if they made any edits it was like a line or two and they'd send it
Yeah,
back. So like I've never actually like sat in a room and like co-wrote
yeah,
organically like with other people and I would love to not only for my growth but for their growth too and to make connections. I think it's really important and everybody just can't do everything themselves is what I've learned. And you know what? That's fine because you need a team to be
yeah,
successful.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. You need to know what your strengths are, what their
Mhm.
strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what their weaknesses are, and then at the end of the day, hopefully, you're kind of filling each other's voids. So.
Exactly. Exactly.
But so failures and fairy tales is out now. It's up on Spotify. Is it just a digital release right now, or are you working on like a hard copy CD, anything like that?
I would love to do hard copies. I thought about it. I still might because I think that would be really cool because there's just something about a physical CD or
Hmm.
like a vinyl or anything like that. So I might, to be determined.
Fair, very fair. And so, are you already looking at like the next project, the next EP, the next single, or are you going to kind of let this be what it is for now?
A little bit of both. I'm kind
Okay.
of like, I have moments throughout the day where I kind of just let it be what it is, but then in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, what are we doing next? So
Okay.
kind of a little bit of both. I sway back and forth.
Nice. I do the exact same thing where it's like, okay, I'm gonna let this be what it is for a little bit. Like right now, I'm supposed to be on a break. Like I was in Nashville back in the beginning of June.
I saw that.
I was there for CMA Fest, and I was like, okay, I've got over 40 interviews. I could take as little as a month and as much as like 3 months off and not have to worry about anything. Like I've got enough content to get me through that. And then somebody reached out to me, was like, hey, would you like to book a podcast? Yep, let's book it. And then you reached out to me. I was like, yep, let's book it. And then we rescheduled. Then I reached out. And so now it's just kind of like, okay, I'm taking a break,
Hmm.
but not really. Like
Yeah.
I'm pre-recording usually the interviews are um streamed live and all that stuff. And I was like, nope,
Yeah.
we're going to just pre record these. And if, say, August, September, I really need to take a break, they're sitting in my back pocket and we're good. So,
Right.
yeah. But, it's one of those things where I think every creative person is always secretly, whether they want to admit it or not, they're always looking at the next project.
100%. I agree. Like you can say you're on a break, like you said, like you're kind of on a break, but you're not really on a break. So
Yeah.
I get it.
Like I'm not actively trying to go anywhere right now. I'm just kind of like here. And I did that this weekend where I didn't go anywhere. And by Sunday, I was just pacing around the house like a crazy person. Like, yeah, it was bad, very bad. So,
It's almost
oh,
like an itch that you need to scratch. Like
right.
you have to be doing something. Like I get it.
Yeah. I was sitting there, I was like, all right, let's start planning out the next trip. I was like, no, I don't want to take a trip right now. I've got to be in Chicago at the end of the month. And I kind of want to just not have to worry about planning a trip. And then there I am Sunday afternoon, like, okay, if I go here, if I take 5 days off, I can go here, here, and here, and then be back by Tuesday and everything will be good. And it's like, stop. What are you
Uh-huh.
doing?
Uh-huh.
So, but
We're
it
all
is what. Oh, have you thought about continuing? Because you'd mentioned wanting to do the bigger project, and you not settled, you decided to do an EP, but you still have the aspirations of doing like a full length album. Have you
Yes.
thought about building out a second EP and just kind of building a full album through making EPs?
I never thought of that until you just said that. That would actually be really interesting, and that could be a route that I take.
Hmm.
When I envisioned an album, yeah, I just envisioned me focusing solely on like the one album, maybe it being like 10 or 12 songs,
Hmm.
but now that's an option that's going to be in my head, so I might think about doing that and
Yeah,
building it up through EPs. I've never thought of that.
because what I've been thinking is it's like, okay, so you got the first EP out,
Hmm.
then you start working towards the second EP, whether it's the end of the year, beginning of next, like how I don't know how quickly you work. So, just kind of figuring out that timeline.
Yeah.
And then 6 months or 4, 6 months later, you have a third EP ready, but you release it as a full length with the first and second EP. And then that way it brings life to the older music with new music, and you got your full length album right there.
It's a good idea. That's not a bad idea at all. See, now I'm gonna start thinking about that and put that in as an option because
If
that's not a bad idea.
It happens. It's one of those things where it's like I sit here and think about random things all damn day, and it's like,
Uh,
oh, okay, that's the way to do it. So, um, so how's your summer shaping up? Are you playing a lot this summer, or how often are you kind of playing right now?
I've actually been kind of on a pause from
Hmm.
playing. I haven't played in a while, but I do have a show on August 8th. I have a showcase that I'm playing like a town over from my
Hmm.
hometown, where they showcase like local musicians and stuff, which is really cool. And that actually like happened out of the blue. Like I just got a random message on Facebook one day and they were like, "Hey, we found your music. We're gonna play it on a radio station. By the way, do you want to come play at a showcase?" I'm like, "Oh, sure, cool." So I
Let's
love it
do
when
it.
that happens, when like things just like fall into your lap like that, because it's very rare that that happens. But that was really cool. And then I've been emailing some other venues, so hopefully
Nice,
I can get out there and play the EP live because
nice.
that would be great.
That's awesome. We're working on we did a live podcast while we did this podcast live out in Nashville,
Yep.
and I really want to do it more,
Yep.
except I'm still so new to try and book venues that it's like I have like a proof of concept. We've done it a couple of times, but trying to explain to venues what a live podcast is or could be,
Yeah.
it's not the easiest thing.
I can only imagine, but like that's got to be so fun though, doing it
Yeah.
actually in person and live with other people.
Yeah. Cause we treat it like a writer's round almost, where it's like
Yeah,
we bring in like 4 or 5 musicians. They come in, play a few songs, we chat. It's a good old time. And then like the next evolution is we want to kind of make it a little bit more fun with like a cover song wheel of death or something, and
that's
just
amazing.
have like a bunch of random cover songs and just be like, okay, you you're gonna get the cover, and we spin the wheel, and then they got to try and cover whatever song it lands on.
Oh, that
So
see now that sounds fun. I would watch that. Like
yeah,
that's so that should be like a game show. That
it
sounds that sounds so good.
because what I was originally looking at, you remember the show Say What Karaoke on MTV?
Maybe, maybe.
It it was a huge thing in like the mid 2000s, like from 2000 to maybe 2006
I've
on
probably seen
MTV.
it.
Yeah. I was trying to sit here trying to remember when it came on because it's like I don't quite remember, but it was basically a show called Say What Karaoke, and they brought 3 guests up, and they basically had a karaoke singing competition, and it was quite funny and humorous. And I want to turn that into like a live show type thing, but I have to figure that one out.
Yeah. Well, people would love that. That's always good entertainment for sure.
Bad singers trying to sing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. Um, have you given any thought about moving back to Nashville, or are you kind of set in Massachusetts for now?
Oh, so many people have asked me if I would move back there. I would like probably visit there a million times and
Mhm.
do like music related things. I don't know if I could ever live there again because my whole family is here and it was
Mhm.
so hard like being like and I like honestly kudos to everybody who does it who's just like there like by themselves, no family, just like doing the grind. It's not for the weak. It's really not for the weak. Like those people are so inspiring, but I'm just somebody who I guess is just such a homebody and I'm so family oriented that I kind of need this as my home base, but
Yeah,
I'm down to go there for extended periods of time, like if I needed to be there for a few weeks or a month, et cetera, et cetera. But as of right now, I don't think I'd move back anytime soon.
fair, very fair. How far from Boston are you?
I love this question. That's like the number one question anyone gets once you're like, "Oh, I'm from Massachusetts." I'm 2 hours out from
Okay,
Boston.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember because I'm pretty sure we had this conversation at one point, but
We might have. We might have.
hey, no, I was asking because since the last time we talked, I had a recruiter ask me if I'd be interested in ever moving to Boston. And I was like, I've heard so many freaking horror stories about that place that I think I'm good. Like,
It's busy. It's like a mini NYC.
yeah,
Like they're both very crazy, very loud. I'll go into the city for anything, but I wouldn't even live in the city
yeah,
myself. Like I'm glad it's a few hours away.
yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, that'd be a cool opportunity to be a place that I've never been before. Like, every
Mhm.
place I've moved, I'm somewhat familiar with the area,
Yeah.
but Boston, I've never been to Massachusetts. I've never been that far up the East Coast. The furthest north I've been is DC,
Okay. Okay.
as far as like north up the East Coast.
Yeah.
So, it would be a complete culture shock to me. And I think I'd get eaten alive if had I taken a look at that job. So,
I would say it's definitely a great place to visit. Like, especially if you're into baseball, like you got to go to Fenway. Like,
yeah,
it's just the whole atmosphere of that baseball venue is unmatched.
I'd imagine it's probably a lot like going to Wrigley Field. I grew up in Chicago and I'm not a Cubs fan, but I've been to Wrigley Field a whole bunch of
Yeah.
times. And I'd imagine it's probably about the same like vibe. So
Maybe I've never been to Wrigley, so maybe now I have to go.
it happens. It's one of those things. It's like it's not for everyone because like the parking really sucks at Wrigley, but
Yeah.
Most people take the train anyway, so it's not a big deal.
Well, it's like the same thing here. Yeah, people just take the T in and then boom, you're at the venue, you're good.
Yeah, for sure. So you'd mentioned that you're doing pretty good as far as shows. You got a whole bunch of stuff coming up. What's kind of the plans as we look into the rest of the summer? It's hard to believe it's July 1st already. So
No. I know. I don't know how we got here. I have no concept of time. I can't believe the year's half over, but I'm excited for like I said, my showcase in August.
mhm.
Trying to figure out what I want to do, if I want to record and release something the second half of this year, if I just want to wait till next year. So I'm kind of in my brainstorming process right now.
If I can recommend, release something this year. Just
Yeah,
do it.
I think I want to.
That would be my recommendation. Even if it's just like something acoustic. Like
Yeah.
I think that's one thing a lot of musicians kind of neglect is like the more acoustic sound because it gives like especially if you were to go and say, okay, I'm gonna want to do something crazy and take failures and fairy tales and turn it into 100% solo acoustic project and just it gives the songs new life. It gets a second opportunity to kind of see if people gravitate more towards the acoustic stuff or the fully produced stuff, you know.
Mhm.
So
And I love a good acoustic set. Like there's something about the vibes. It's just so like intimate and I love it. I love it.
yeah, for sure. So outside of music, what have you been getting into recently?
I have so many concerts coming up. I know you said outside of music, but outside of my own music,
Yeah,
I'm like lined up with concerts. I have Luke Bryan on July
nice,
18th. Then I have Kane Brown. Then I have Avril Lavigne. I have
nice,
Kenny Chesney. I have a couple more that I can't think of off the top of my head, but like this is like the first year in a while that I'm just like booked with
nice,
concerts and I love it.
nice. I'm kind of upset that I'm not back out in New Mexico these days because there's this venue out there. He brings in a lot of like either like really big regional acts or acts that were popular like 15 years ago.
That's cool.
Uh, like I got to see Disturbed for
Okay.
like $20 at his venue.
See now that's cool.
You know, it's like you got like these bands and whatnot, or not. Yeah, was it? Yeah, it was Disturbed. That's right. Okay. I was sitting here, I was like, wait, was it Drowning Pool? No, it was Disturbed. And then
Yeah.
like Power Man 5000 is gonna be there on Wednesday, and I'm like, dang it, that'd just be cool to go see them. But you know, no, that's cool. I'm glad that you're getting the or giving yourself the opportunity to go out and enjoy
Oh,
music outside of your own because I think you're gonna find more inspiration that way.
hmm
So, have you found since you started going to more shows that that's kind of the case?
Yeah, like honestly, it's so funny because the weirdest things spark like inspiration for something. I wish somebody could actually go through the notes in my phone because they don't make any sense, but it's like, yeah, I could either go to like a concert or like see a person walking on the sidewalk or like a dog or like a specific thing. And then it's just like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have this idea. It's so weird how it works.
Yeah, I guess that's what AI is for nowadays. Just put it in Chat GPT and be like, make sense of all this for me.
It's like scary to me, almost like how you can type anything into Chat GPT and you just like get something. Like it could write me a whole song if I wanted
Mhm.
it to.
I did that as an experiment once. I had this idea for a song, and I don't know, or I didn't, and I still really don't know how to write a song. So I was just like, okay.
Mhm.
And I started like looking, and I went to Chat GPT, and I was like, write a song with this is the chorus. I kind of had like a little 4 bar chorus thing worked
Yeah.
out in my head. I was like, okay, write a song about this with this is the chorus. And it spits out this entire song and it looked like it was correctly formatted. And I'm like, okay. And so I start playing around with it. I was like, okay. And I just kept going back and back. And then I was like, all right, that's kind of interesting. And then I found another AI software that will actually write music and sing the song.
Jeez.
And I was like, okay, let's see. And I threw it in there and I'm like, Okay, that's not exactly what I want, but we could play with
Yeah.
this. Yeah, so it was quite the fun adventure. I feel really bad about it, but it's cool.
It's just, yeah, it's so crazy. Or like when you're scrolling through TikTok and you see like all these AI covers that people have made and it's like somebody else's song with like, I don't know, like Taylor Swift's voice on it,
Yeah,
and you're just like, I don't understand how it knows how to do that.
right. The funniest thing I've seen recently is they've been doing this AI thing after the NBA draft was last week, and
Yep.
LeBron James' son got drafted to the Laker, like all this stuff. And they used AI to take the head coach's press conference after the draft and started saying some of the most out of pocket, relentless stuff. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, did he really say this or is this AI? Because like some of the stuff was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But then it
Yeah.
was like, no, he didn't say this on air. There's no way he said this on air.
Yeah.
So
Which it's just crazy.
it's scary, is what it is. So,
It it is.
uh,
It's so scary.
so as far as like concerts, who have you not seen that you really are like dying to see?
Taylor Swift. I have tried so hard since I was so young because I've been a fan of her since I was like really, really young in like her debut era. And like every single concert, my parents have tried to get tickets. I've tried to get tickets. The whole Ticketmaster debacle for like the Eras tour, couldn't get them. I couldn't even get tickets for overseas, but like I'm dying to see her.
Well, luckily she seems to be really laying in on this Eras tour thing, so I think you're going to get a couple of more shots to go see her.
I really hope so because like I could cry at this point.
It's funny because you're like the 10th person that I've talked to that have had that exact same sentiment, and it's like I wish I enjoyed a band that much. Like, just like I enjoy music and I enjoy the song,
Yeah.
but it's like I'm not going to go to I'm not going to go put myself into debt to go to a concert like that.
See, people are, yeah, dedicated to her, especially. Yeah, I mean, I saw the movie, which, that
Mhm.
was the best thing that I could get at the end of last year. I acted like I was at the concert, but I'm like, I just want to see it in
Yeah.
person.
I
Like,
don't
for real.
There's a girl that I work with. There was one of the shows was in like New York or something, I think.
Yeah.
And she flew from Kansas City. She took the day off of work, flew from Kansas City to New York, saw the show, then that night flew from New York back to Kansas City and was back at work the next day. And
How was she alive?
I'm sitting there, I'm like, why did you do that? Like, not only how are you alive, but
Yeah.
why? And then like a week later, they were in Kansas City anyways, and she went again. And I'm like, I don't get it. I'm good. You guys have fun.
Yeah. I just want to go once.
Mhm.
Just literally, I don't care where it is. Cause like, yeah, I know people that went to like multiple shows across the country. I'm like, I just want to go once. Literally
Right?
just one time.
It's like, well, Taylor Swift, if you're listening,
Yes, I
let's make
love you.
let's make this happen. That would be so funny if in like a week you get a message like, "Hey, let's do this."
I would lose it. I literally would promote your podcast the whole time I was there, be like, hey, this is how I got here.
That's so funny. Uh, I wish I could say she was listening, but I know she's not. So it's like
That's okay.
it's whatever.
You
Um,
okay.
but no, that's cool. So you got the new EP out and you got showcase coming up. So you're gonna have a really cool, busy summer and a whole bunch of concerts and all that fun stuff. So I'm excited to see how things progress for you. Like, you're always welcome on the podcast. We had you, it's been about a little over a year, I want to say. Yeah, I
Yes.
think. So if anybody wants to check out your music, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
Oh geez, everywhere. I'm pretty active on Instagram right now and TikTok. Just at Bekka Dowland. That's for all socials. You can find me literally everywhere.
Have you gotten on the Threads train yet?
I'm on it, but like I'm not as consistent as other people, but
Mhm.
like I'm on it. I'm there.
Fair. Yeah, I'd say I'm about the same. I'll throw out a post like once every couple of weeks, and you know, some people get like really good traction off of it,
Mhm.
And I'm just like, I just don't get it right now. So, but one platform you should be checking out. Actually, there's two. There's two that are really good. I don't know. Are you on LinkedIn?
No, actually, I'm not.
You might want to look at getting on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's actually doing some really interesting things. And if you make it more music based, that's you could get maybe a sponsorship. Like there's you could get introduced to some really cool things off of that. So it might be something worth looking into.
Good to know.
And then if you're into writing, like obviously songwriting, but like
Yeah.
just writing in general, check out Substack.
I do have a Substack. I haven't used it much yet, but I do have one.
That's good. I I've started using it and I'm seeing the upsides. It's been a hard hill to climb, but it's getting there. So, but really appreciate your time and hope you have a great rest of your day. What do you got planned for the rest of the day? Are you gonna just hang out or
I would say, yeah, it's like 7:30 for me, so I'm probably gonna go sit outside because it's supposed to get really hot and humid, and it's actually really nice tonight. So I'll probably go sit outside for a while. But yeah, thanks for having me again.
yeah,
It's always nice chatting with you. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the support.
yeah, absolutely. I do want to end this podcast on one thing though. You
Okay.
threw me for a real loop not too long ago because
Okay.
you were doing a TikTok and I think you were wearing like a Texas A&M football jersey or something.
Yes.
And I got super confused.
So, okay, well, this is a great way to end this. My cousin lives in San Antonio
Okay.
and she got married down there. So we went down there in 2022 and I just have a thing for college jerseys. I am a football fan myself, but more
Yeah.
like NFL than college. And
Yeah.
I was like, we were at Bucky's and I was like, I need this. I'm like, this is my college souvenir. So now I have that and everyone's like, why are you wearing that? And I'm like, I
Fair.
I like it.
Fair. You threw me for a real loop. I'm sitting here, I'm like, she's from like Massachusetts. Did she go to A&M? And I just kind of missed that entire conversation or
I don't know. Well, also to be fair, one of my really good friends is an A&M fan. So I was like, oh,
okay.
that's my in. I'm like, at least I have somebody in my circle that's a huge fan.
Nice. So I feel like we just sparked up another 20-minute conversation. You brought up
Probably
football.
did.
Who's your team? I feel like it was the Patriots, but I don't know if we talked about this.
It's actually not. See, that's the assumption, obviously, because I'm from
Yeah,
Massachusetts. So I was born into being a Buffalo Bills fan. Mom and dad were both Bills fans. I was not getting out of that, but I would not change it for anything because I love being a
fair,
Bills fan. But growing up here, it is so hard to be anything other than a Patriots fan.
fair, very fair. It's Buffalo Bills fans. I don't hate them as much as Patriots fans.
I
So
hear.
I will like. I've had so many friends that are Philadelphia Eagles fans. I hate Philly with a passion. Like I will burn this bridge to the ground. I am never moving to Philly. Ain't happening. No chance. But Bills fans, they're cool. Like I dig it. I get it. So
I mean, they're dedicated. Like people will literally go and shovel out the stadium for free
mhm.
tickets. Like it does
Right.
not get much more dedicated than that.
They did do that this year, didn't they? Because you guys got or they had like a whole bunch of snow there.
They had so much snow. Well, then okay, so you got to be like what? Cowboys, Texans, any
No,
Texas, team, right? No.
Chicago Bears.
Ah, Chicago. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
um so that's been a whole like lineage of mediocrity since I've been here, or since I've been a Bears fan, which is since forever, since I've been
Yep.
born. So, um, but I finally feel like we're going to be in those same conversations that the Buffalo Bills are in, that the
Yeah.
Cincinnati Bengals are, like, and all these teams that got this elite quarterback. And I think we're finally in that conversation. We'll find out.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's
um,
going to be an interesting year for football.
that's the other thing a lot of people don't talk about is yes, you could have a great team,
Hmm.
but half the NFL has these amazing all-star teams. So like
Yep.
what are you really going to do? Luckily you don't play them half the time, but you know,
Right.
you got like all these all-star teams and there's nothing you can do about it. So,
Exactly. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a good year.
yep, absolutely. But Once again, I do thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, for tuning in, and we will catch y'all later.